Space Committee meeting, July 15th, 2022. We'll call the meeting to order. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we are now in order. First thing on the agenda is to approve the minutes of the regular session on June 17th, 2022. Can I have a motion to accept those minutes?
I'll move that we approve the minutes.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
And just to note, the executive session minutes from that meeting, we will hold until the next time we have an executive session. I didn't want to call one today just to approve, minutes, okay. All right, new business, well, kind of same business. Review the list of owners unknown on the latest tax lien list. Amy, thank you for joining us this morning. Amy Bullock, our tax collector. I just went over that latest list and looked at the owners unknown and matched them. Just looked at how many, everybody had wondered how big they are, so I just noted how many acres or square feet or whatever, and looked to see if any of these are something we can recommend.
I thought that list didn't have the acreage on it, though.
No, it didn't, but
Okay.
I went and looked.
Okay, I was gonna say.
No, I
All right.
went and looked up. I looked up
Okay.
all the assessor's cards on these properties to see.
So do you have some of note that you want us to?
Well, I would, the little ones, the ones that are just little square feet, 2,000 or 20,000 square feet in a bog, is not crucial. But when you have 2.8 acres and grassy pond, that's a significant conservation area. And I think the, Amy Usowski was all in favor of, doing something with that particular property. There's, Bank Street, 1.3 acres, 2.8 acres Chatham Road. I mean, these are, sizable properties that.
Do we know if they're upland or wetland?
Well, the grassy pond, I think, backs up to, isn't there, and some of the Bank Street, there's the bog behind.
There's a lot of, I'm just looking at the, and there's like at least 3 owners unknown properties, basically in the wetlands, up by where Lover's Lane comes into the, they'll have a 0 Bank Street. This one says off Bank Street. Really have, they may be large, but they're, don't have any significant.
They're not developable.
Aren't developed.
Yeah.
Well, the one property though, there that, let's see, map 32B6, Bank Street, we do have a potential buyer. We have the property owner that said he was interested in purchasing that property from the town if and when, it becomes available. He's interested in it. So there's one, even though it's not,
Before we go forward, though, talking about new properties, I'd love to talk with Amy and find out sort of what the process has been at your end for, back in January, I think it was, we made a report to the selectmen, gave them a list of properties that we saw as being worth pursuing. And there was some maps that went with that Dave put together. Have you guys been working from that list?
I know there are 3 or 4 that Elaine had emailed me. Oh, I'm sorry.
You can
Okay.
sit up front, too.
You can sit at the,
Okay.
More comfy.
Yeah.
you're the presenter.
Okay. I know there are 3 or 4 that Elaine had sent me that I had sent up to the attorney to begin the foreclosure process. It takes time. We just recently foreclosed back in April on 2 properties that had been put up in 2015. So it takes some time, yeah, especially with these owners unknown, because they have to go through, do the whole title search,
Right.
you know, research, go back. So it does take some
Do
time.
you know offhand which ones we're talking about?
I don't, I can find out, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
all right. Because just to see
Yep,
what's happened to,
Yep.
you know.
yep,
So
So-
we were a little confused because, you know, we put together that initial list and it included, oh God, I can't remember how many properties, over 30 properties.
yep, yep,
And then, at a meeting 2 months ago, Mike McCaskill was here, and he said, we want you to identify 10 more properties. And we were like, I took that to mean prioritize the list that we already, you know, put together, which are the most important ones to go after. Everybody else understood it to mean, go find some other properties beyond that list.
yep, yep,
And so we were all kind of sitting here scratching our heads about what are we supposed to be doing here.
right, right,
So it wasn't clear to me, what the committee wanted was a status report on the ones that we had already recommended before we try to dream up more.
exactly, yep,
Yeah.
yep, yep.
Well, the ones that we had marked as priority, maybe you know something about. Route 39, Little Shaver.
That one does not sound familiar.
It's right next to Thompson's Field
Okay,
there.
okay.
Yeah, okay,
It's,
so
yeah.
nothing's,
Yeah.
What's the map and parcel on that one?
There isn't one.
Oh, there wasn't one.
oh, it says map 62 here.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah,
not
it's
assessed.
on
It's
that.
not
it
assessed.
It's
shows
not
on
assessed,
that-
if it's not
shows-
assessed, then I wouldn't know anything about it,
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
But I know the assessor's office is working on identifying some of these pieces that have not been assessed and getting them, you know, finding, in most cases, heirs, or, you know, the last known owner they're assessing to.
Yeah, the ones on that list that in front of you, Elaine, that are highlighted in green
Yep,
are all big parcels that are not assessed.
yeah.
So, you know, I mean, some of them are really big. It's
Right.
like 60 acres
Right.
of land that isn't assessed.
Yeah,
So those, ironically, to us, those were the most important ones. that,
Right.
You know, these
Yes.
big tracts of land that
Yep.
are not even on the tax rolls.
yeah,
But probably the research for those takes,
yeah,
A
and,
long
yeah,
time.
and that would be the assessors, right?
okay.
And I guess to follow up on that, I think I had a concern that we had gone through this whole exercise back at the beginning of this year. And without a report on where those properties went, we were asked to basically do the same thing all over again.
Right, right,
And that, to me, doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
I know, I know.
And so therefore, I have suggested at the last meeting that we get together with you, with the Board of Selectmen, with Joe Powers, so that we all know what's going on. Because
Right.
we're getting a request to do what we did the beginning of the year without any knowledge of what happened to that request.
Right, right. Yeah, and I mean, I can look up and see which ones, the ones that you guys were interested in that I have sent up to the attorney. She's probably got at least a couple of dozen right now that she's working on. I mean, not necessarily all yours, but,
Okay,
yeah.
then
Well, it would be
why are-
good to know which one she's, even if
Right.
it's not ones we
Yeah.
recommended.
Right.
Because then that would take it off our
Okay,
looking
right.
at, we're not
right,
bother having to
right.
look at it if it's,
So
I
why are
think
we
the last
being-
list I sent you may have included that, or may not have included those, but I'm not positive. I'll have to check.
okay.
So why
Yeah,
are we
I'll-
being asked to do the same thing again that we did in January?
Right, when the wheels are just spinning, yeah,
Yeah.
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 My question is, oh, I'm sorry, Dave, go ahead.
Along those lines, did you get the email that I sent a couple days ago requesting an updated lien list?
I did get that. I was out yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it was sent, after 4 o'clock or whatever on Wednesday.
Yep.
So I did get it, but this morning I didn't even get a chance to look at
Because-
emails yet.
In that email, I requested, if possible, and I don't know how big a challenge this is that in addition to the list like we've been receiving, that there be columns on the report that it would identify, has it already been foreclosed, okay? Because I know that many of these properties that are on that list, there is a foreclosure
In process,
in
right,
process.
yeah, Yeah.
And I don't know what the process is, so I'm gonna follow this up with a question about that. If there is a payment plan been worked out for a particular parcel,
Mm-hmm.
it may be appearing on a list, we need to know that sort of stuff. So
Mhm.
if we can get that date, a column or two columns, one that's in foreclosure and one that it's in a payment plan,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm sure, I'm guessing here, that there is a process for foreclosure and there's a process in developing a payment plan. In other
Right.
words, you're working on one with the owner and.
Right, and with the
Yeah, hey,
attorneys
they're-
working on the other,
They're paying on
yeah.
it, okay?
Yep.
And they're following through on that plan. I don't know what the steps are for foreclosure, other than possibly we gave it to the lawyer.
Right.
And two, maybe it's a court, we have a court date, and three, it's been fully filed. I'm not, again, I have to rely upon your office and your knowledge here to.
Right.
Is that possible to get that?
Yeah, I can add those, columns to the spreadsheets, sure. I
Okay.
can do that, yeah.
Because,
I'm pretty sure the last list I sent, I deleted anything that had a payment plan.
Yeah,
And
you
it-
did, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, you
I
did.
want to see it all, and here's
Mhm.
why.
Yep.
I'm in the process right now of redeveloping the maps that we, as a committee, use to identify stuff like this. And right now, I'm looking at a nice, beautiful colored map that tells me everything I need to know about property. Whether it's owner's unknown, whether has no map and parcel ID and is not being assessed. And it would be helpful to be able to identify through cross-hatching or something of that nature, say, yes, this is on the tax lien list, but it's there, and it's already in, there's a payment plan, or there's something like that. So
Right.
that way we just drop those things off our consideration.
Right.
Other than, kind of a follow-up question would be with respect to, when a foreclosure is occurring, it has been filed, or, because there's steps to that foreclosure
Right,
process.
yeah.
The town doesn't, there's some of those foreclosures were, from what I've seen, done, decades ago.
Right. Right.
And is there a reason why those have not been finalized with the court?
The really old ones, I don't know. I don't even know who filed the really old ones. The
Yeah, I'm
attorney that
sure.
I'm working with now, we've been using for, gosh, say probably the past 5 to 7 years. But those are, like I said, the ones that we just recently did back in April. That's how long it takes. Yeah,
I realize
Yeah,
it, but it's
yeah.
like, things that are on these lists,
right.
it seems to me,
I think
town has
that,
a right to go in there and take those at that point.
right, well,
And
yeah.
can you explain that foreclosure process? Do you understand that?
I think the older ones, I have a feeling that they don't exist anymore. I think they're so old that the land court has just closed those cases out.
So what does that
Now, wait a
mean?
minute. If
I don't think they're working on them anymore. I think they
don't-
just,
I
I don't
see-
know.
I don't see in the court records anything that this foreclosure's been eliminated. It is still registered to that property.
Right, exactly. I mean, the town can't take it unless we do foreclose. I mean, it has
Right.
to, that process has to be
You know,
complete.
what
Yeah.
I'm seeing is a statement from the town that we now have the ability to do the final foreclosure. Is that correct?
On the really old ones?
All of them. I mean, it's a court record. Is there a difference between, I mean, Jim may know, but
I'd have to check with the attorney. I'd have to check with the attorney and find out, if nothing happens on those cases, what's the next step? Yeah, I would have to check with her. And she's not the one that filed on those really old ones, but the ones that she does have, I mean, she does follow up. It's just, there's only a certain amount of title examiners that work for the land court, so it takes a long time,
I know.
yeah.
But those are all questions for us, because, I don't want to spend time you know, saying, oh, we ought to foreclose on something, that's already got a foreclosure on it.
Right,
all right?
right.
Those are not our business.
right,
It is a question I, as a resident of the town, wonder why the town has not followed through to clear that stuff.
right.
And I think that if I, you know, as we're finding, Mike McCaskill's pretty interested in getting these old stuff cleared off the boards as quickly as
Right.
possible.
Yeah,
I'm not a lawyer, I don't know what it requires to do that, but it, you know, I'm more than happy to say, Mike, these are ones that, out of our realm, you know,
mm-hmm,
go yell at somebody.
Well, this last list that we got from Amy, she did remove all the payment plan people and things that are in the process.
yeah,
so-
but Dave doesn't want them removed, he just wants
I
them
don't
marked.
You wanna see
Yeah.
that they are.
Yeah.
I wanna
Yeah.
I
see
just
them
wanna see
so
the
that
ones I have
we're
to deal
aware
with.
Yep.
of those, because you could, if you're comparing that list to say the maps, you're gonna say, well, wait a second, that's not on my list.
Mm-hmm,
I wanna be
Okay.
able to say,
All right,
I
got
know
it.
why it's not on that particular list.
right,
My question for you, land of low value.
yeah,
There's a list
Mhm.
of some parcels that we got this letter in January, I
Right,
guess. What happens to it? It's, you know, it's land of low
those need,
value.
within 2 years, those need to, be auctioned. The town would have to, we'd have to hold an auction for them. If they don't go, then they're the town's.
All right, so, but you don't have to wait 2 years to auction.
No, it has to be done within, I think it's 2 years, either 2 to 3, yeah,
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah, and that,
Within 2 years.
yeah,
So, are any of these been put up for auction?
not yet, no.
Why?
Is there a plan for when they will be?
I have not
Who makes
discussed
that
that.
decision?
Probably Joe, Selectman or Joe, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah, all right, because, you know, there's a whole list here that, again, you know, for whatever the situation of the property itself, whether it's wetlands or bog or inaccessible or whatever, I mean, we're talking major areas in town, Bank Street, Sisson Road, Chatham Road, Queen Anne Road. And, you know, these are not little things way up on the edges, the fringe of the town or anything.
Right.
These are
Right in the
stretch of
middle, yeah.
town. Yeah, you know, somebody be interested. I know one of them, somebody is interested in it. But, you know,
Yeah, I did hear from a lot of abutters way back when we were gonna do that, sell the whole tax lien.
Right.
All of them, and I heard from several abutters that said, well, wait a minute, I'd be interested in taking that one. I mean, for the most part, they're unbuildable, but it just adds to their.
their property.
To their
value.
property, yeah.
Yeah.
I have that whole list somewhere.
Well, you know what? Maybe I will just check with the town administrator and see what's happening.
Yeah, the land of low value, yep, they could certainly set up an auction on those. As a matter of fact, I met one of the auctioneers, local, Sullivan and Sullivan, recently, at an auction that she was doing, and we were talking about it, and we were gonna get together and talk about the land of low values, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but we haven't,
I'm sorry, what does that mean, land of low values?
if it's under a certain dollar amount valued, the parcels, then it can go through, like Donna and I had worked in that, the former assessing director. We fill out this huge, long thing on the state and the DOR website of all the back taxes and all the property information, upload record cards and everything. And, you can file for foreclosure that way, rather than going through land court, if it's under a certain dollar value. So we had filled it out, gosh, I think it was back in 2019, and then COVID, and nobody's working at the state. So it just kind of sat for a really long time. When we finally got the approval, gosh, I think it was just the beginning of this year.
Well,
that
this
it
letter
was-
is January 25th,
Yeah,
2022.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So it took a long time,
So the low value is determined by market?
by the state,
Okay.
yep, yep,
Well, they set the threshold, right?
correct,
Right.
yes.
But in terms of your determination that it is land of low value, in other words, that it meets that threshold, does that take into account what they owe in back taxes, or is it just
No,
market
that's
value?
just strictly the value of the property,
Okay.
the assessed value.
The assessed
Yep.
value?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Kathy?
Yeah, just a quick question. So, once the foreclosure procedure is begun,
Mhm.
do the taxes, back taxes keep accruing? during
So the
whole-
back taxes then get moved, I wipe out the tax lien account, and that gets moved to a tax possession account.
Okay, and does it keep accruing, though?
No, does
No,
not
it
keep
does
accruing
not.
interest,
Okay.
no.
And at the end of the foreclosure procedure, so say goes through and boom, done, then what happens?
So the owners, the previous owners have a year to come forward and pay. The two that we just did in April, one of those owners is looking to pay.
So even at the end of the foreclosure
Mhm, they
procedure,
have a year.
after you've gone through maybe X number of years
Right,
and
yep.
expense,
Yep,
they still have the option to come forward,
yes, yep.
pay the back taxes which-
And all those expenses.
and the expenses.
Yep, yep.
And the taxes, those stopped when you started the foreclosure procedure.
Not when we started, but once the judgment is actually entered, that it's
Okay,
foreclosed,
Okay,
yeah.
all right. So other than owners that might come forward, then what happens with
Mm-hmm. Then the town
foreclosed?
can auction,
The town can auction, or
Yep.
does the town,
or sell, yeah, yeah.
must the town auction?
I believe so. I don't think you can just take it, I think you have to, or I think,
If there's a
I'm not
public
really-
purpose.
Well,
Yeah.
it says on here, and I'll say, to complete the foreclosure under this affidavit, you must record it with the related statements, and after advertisement and posting, sell the parcels at public auction within 2 years.
yeah, that's for the land of low values, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's
But
the land of
I
values.
would
I'm
think you would
talking
still
about
have to
just
make a
foreclosures
public-
in general.
Yeah, yeah.
What's the process? At
Yeah.
the end of the process, then
Once the
is
town
the town
owns it,
obligated
yep.
to sell at within a certain time frame, or,
I don't think there's a time frame on it. I
Okay,
don't think so,
so-
no, yeah.
so the town just is
Yeah.
gonna?
I mean, I think that would be like a town meeting thing where it's like, what do you, now the town owns this, what do you want to do with it, I mean, if there was if somebody had a suggestion, like, oh, we might want to use this for that, that would get voted at town meeting, or do we want to sell it? That would
Once
get-
it's
yeah.
foreclosed on officially, the town owns it.
Correct.
The deed is transferred to the town, is
Correct.
that
Yep.
correct?
Yep.
So then it becomes another one of our town-owned parcels.
Yeah, yeah.
That we don't know what to do with.
Yeah, yeah.
So then, does the town have a requirement to sell it at
I don't
auction?
believe so.
So the town at that point, could keep it for whatever town
Right.
purposes the town determines?
Yeah, yeah,
Be
but yeah,
Conservation, recreation, or a town facility?
yeah, yeah.
Or they could sell it.
Or they could sell
Or
it.
they could sell
Okay.
it, and if they sell it, they have to sell it at auction, right?
I believe so. I
Okay.
believe so.
So have we had any of those, like in the last decade?
Not in the last decade, no. We had a land of low value sale, gosh, probably back in the early 2000s. And there were a lot of parcels up on Depot Street, a lot of those Belmont Garden parcels. And, yeah,
So your tax lien list that you were gonna publicly, whatever, number of years ago, the number of parcels on that list from then to now, has it significantly decreased or somewhat decreased?
I wouldn't say significantly. I mean, I've done a lot of reports to the selectmen that out of the past, like say since 2010 to now, those parcels tend to turn over. We're taking on average like 20 to 25 a year. We put new liens on. And out of those 20 to 25, if you look back to over the past 10 years, most of them are rotating. They get paid. Because most of the newer ones are, people live in them. It's
Oh, okay.
it's the older stuff, the really old stuff that is just sitting.
And have you found that the current real estate market in the last year and a half has influenced any of this? In
Not
terms of getting
so
people
much.
seeking out properties that have liens on them?
Yeah,
and,
no, yeah.
No?
Not,
Okay.
no,
Just curious.
yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any other questions for Amy? I don't want to take too much of her time. We're good? Okay. Yeah, if you can, for what.
Yep. Like I said, I was checking my emails last night, and I did see the one from you, but I didn't really
It's okay.
look too much at it
It's
because
understandable.
there wasn't anything I could do about it.
No, that's
yeah.
fine. And we really appreciate your time.
Sure.
And I always appreciate you working with us. And I have to say, whenever I ask for something, I email or call Amy, and I've got it right away. So she's very good at working with us, and we appreciate it.
Sure thing.
Thank you. Thank you
Sure.
very
Thank
much
you.
for
All
joining
right.
us
You're
this morning.
welcome.
Have a good day.
Have a good weekend.
Okay.
Okay.
So where does that leave us?
Yeah, question.
I mean, I guess I'm just a little confused about if there's a different path for each thing. Like, there's a different path for owners unknown and a different path for miscellaneous and a different path for, you know what I'm saying? Like, are they all handled a little differently? And should we be focusing on just one and not the other? I know we're supposed to focus on the owners unknown, but I don't know, it just seems,
But I think, you say the owner's unknown, there's two different versions of that, okay?
Right.
There's the tax, I think that the things that are owners unknown on the tax lien list
and then the ones that don't
are
have.
probably gonna apply to, their rules apply to anything that's on the tax
Okay.
lien list. There's the untaxed owner's unknown property, missing a map and parcel. And
And who has
that is
that?
the one that requires, it.
Who has
requires
that
the-
list? Like the assessor's office has that list, or does no one have that
The
list? per
assessor's
se?
office is working on that, as a matter of fact. I had a meeting this week with Carly
Mhm.
at the assessor's office and Gail. Now, Gail is part-time, I don't take this off so you can understand me. Gail's a part-time former assessor in Easton, got a lot of experience, and they've been cleaning up the records down there.
I guess I'm curious as to who's driving what, like,
Right.
you know what I'm
So-
saying? Like, who's driving this bus, who's driving that bus?
These, right now, it's Carly and Gail, and there's, they're shorthanded, but they are driving the research into the parcels that have no map and parcel.
Oh, not
ID.
parcel.
And
And,
they've been able to identify about $1 million worth of property so far.
okay. So if there's no map and parcel numbers, how do they go about that? Without doing a lot of,
The
deed
they're
research?
not doing the deed research. Well,
Right.
here's what I discovered.
Yeah,
They have the old copies of the assessor's maps going way back.
okay,
And they're finding out that there were cases where, apparently back in 2010, somehow a whole bunch of parcels were just erased from the maps.
What?
oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. All right. Okay?
It
Because
gets better.
the people weren't there anymore, nobody had been around, so they just
Okay.
took the name, they just took the lines off, took the names, yeah.
So that's
So-
one resource.
So now what they're doing is and then they go back, find those deeds and the information about that, and are putting them on the rolls, the heirs of Judah Eldridge, or something. That is, because that's the case, it's that same situation. Now they can start taxing it. They can't send a tax bill because they don't know where the heirs are, but that's the same thing that's true about Judah. So I'm waiting now for the revised shape files, which show the property lines. They had to rework, well, some of this information had actually been available since 2018. And in some cases, they fixed the Mylars, but they never fixed the shape files. So the data we've been looking at was wrong, and I knew that, or to a certain part of that. But, and apparently the town, well, what happened was the mapping company went belly up. It was a small firm in Hyannis. And the town took the money away from the assessor to pay for this mapping. How they got away with the state, because the state requires updated maps on a yearly basis, I haven't a clue. Can't change history, it is what it is. whether that's right or wrong. But they have been, over the last several months, spending a great deal of time correcting the maps on the Mylars, in comparing to what's on the Mylars for the new subdivisions and all the rest of that stuff. And looking at some of this other stuff going back historically. And that information has been given to this new mapping company they now have a 4-year contract with. So there's, it looks like this is gonna be rolling along pretty well.
So Dave, if they find a map in a parcel and they find who the owners are, can they start sending them a tax bill? Like, how is that received?
Well,
Like-
the thing was, for these last 4 years or 3 years that they were fixing the Mylar maps. These are old Mylar plastic, and people draw literally lines and put hand letter and everything else. Apparently, those were being kept up to date. The information just never got to the GIS
Ah.
mapping folks.
Okay.
So they're now correcting all of those errors. The stuff that they're doing where they're going back to the old Mylar, or the old maps, and that information was never in the assessor's database. That's being added to that database and to the maps. So now, since it's in the database, they can start the taxing on it. So,
Do
yeah.
we
But
know-
the town basically in 2010 threw away all of this data, and I don't know whether they can go back and pick up the taxes that may have been due on that property back in, 2005. I don't know where that sits. But
Do we know if the big parcels that we had identified, the land west of the Copolis property in the Six Ponds and the Little Shaver Lane and the area south of the, southwest of the dump? I mean, there were like 4 big owners unknown parcels that we identified. Is that what they're working on?
that is what they're working on now.
Okay,
They were focusing in on one, and I think it was Little Shaver, but I don't know.
okay.
Yeah, I had a phone conversation with Mr. McCaskill, and he said Little
And so they
Shaver
were-
was,
Yeah.
and those 4, he is actively pursuing,
All right.
so.
What happened was that they were working diligently on the project, and about 4 months ago, when the new tax bills came out, there was a whole bunch of craziness going on in their office, and they just have not been able to get back to it. That has now calmed down, and they're gonna circle back and keep working on that information. So they've corrected found about $1 million worth of property they can be taxing now. And we can anticipate more of that. So there's gonna be a lot of changes in these things going forward over the next year. Now, the updating the electronic parcels map only occurs once a year. So we're gonna have to wait another year before we'll actually be able to have the data from our perspective. I'll do what I can to see what we can do about maybe making corrections on it, but I'm not a cartographer, and I'm not about to be in there tweaking the shape
You're
files.
not?
Let's put it that way. Well, let's put it this way. I would have to learn too much to do that, yeah.
Jim?
Okay, if that process is going on and they identify who the owners are in some of these big pieces of property that we identified as priorities, doesn't that sort of delay the whole process of proceeding with those properties? Because if they identify who the owners are, then they are, I would assume, sending tax bills to the last known address of that owner. We would then have to wait until there was a significant amount of taxes so that they could do a tax lien on that property and then go through a foreclosure process on that property, assuming that that taxes would not be paid even though we've identified an owner. Now, as opposed to if it's purely owners unknown and there's no owners identified, then the town could do an eminent domain process and acquire a title immediately.
I think, I'm not a lawyer, I don't know for sure, but I think the town can do an eminent domain on any property they deem has a municipal purpose.
That's true,
Right.
Dave.
And-
They
and-
can, as long
right.
as there's a public purpose, the town can take any piece of property they want. That's
They would
correct.
not be able to take something with the sole purpose of reselling it. So I would agree with you that they might have to wait some time, but I don't, I don't know what the impact is if it's being taxed to the heirs of someone who died 100 years ago and nobody has a clue who might own that property today, whether they would have to wait until the tax is built up in any way, shape, or form.
Well, they'd have to do that if they want to go the tax lien and foreclosure process.
Right.
As you point out, they could still do the eminent domain process. And the advantage of finding out this information is that might help speed up the title examination that would
Absolutely.
need to be done prior to doing the eminent domain taking. Because, if it's purely unknown, then the title examination and the determination of property lines becomes very difficult. You can only do it by taking a look at all the adjacent properties that surround it and see what information you could get about their property lines as it abuts this property. But if they can find deeds, even if they're 100 years old, that may, sort of speed up the process of doing the title and the survey necessary before you do the taking.
Yes. Yep.
My fear is that that 1 million coming back is gonna turn out to be unpaid, you know?
Well, some of it, I gotta
You know,
admit,
we're just
some of-
adding more tax lien
Yeah.
to the list eventually.
Well, if you're like an heir of Judah Eldridge, let's just say, and you own this much of this, you're not gonna come forward because you don't wanna have any responsibility for the potential of any kind of tax lien.
You don't wanna pay your cousins and cousins.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah, right.
So,
Right.
Outnumber
You know, so-
your
so
piece of
eminent
it.
domain is a clearer way to go.
Well, that's the way
than-
they are going with Judah
I think
Eldridge.
that's
They are
what they
doing
want, they
eminent.
wanna do,
Yeah.
but in order to do eminent domain, they still have to do deed research to see if they
Yeah.
can determine who
Correct.
the
Yeah.
owners are.
Right.
And so that's what Carly and Gail are working on now.
Oh,
And they have a hidden source that I didn't know about of these old maps that might provide information.
Isn't there a book of those maps down in the library where we used to meet?
There's
There's a book,
there's
the
multiple
old
books
books
like-
there that have all the old maps of
Yeah.
town with the, you
Mm.
know,
Yeah.
going way back, just
Well,
in the book.
it's good that they're doing that research, because at a certain point, if the town decides to go eminent domain, they're going to have to get an attorney and a tax examiner, a title examiner involved. But having done that research will speed up that whole process and make that process a little bit cheaper for the town.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I told them that I volunteered, as much time as I could give them to assist in this project, because, this is something we really wanted I personally have wanted for years.
Yeah.
And suddenly I've got there's a
So,
hidden source of
Quick
information.
question, the Little Shaver property.
Yes.
So the road that's gone in off of 39 there, right next to
There's
Tom's.
two driveways.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a shared driveway.
So is that like a private,
It's
That's
a
privately owned now,
three-lot
yeah,
subdivision.
three-lot subdivision?
Yeah, two.
That somebody purchased the pocket deed or something from somebody, or?
Yeah, they went to this was something that when they first cut in,
Right,
for
Did
the
the perk,
perk test.
yeah,
I raised the issue with Donna and everything else, and they eventually were able to provide enough legal information to the assessor's office that they accepted that in fact that they own it.
Mhm.
I'm gonna trust the assessor's office doing
mhm. And is that on the fringe of the owner's unknown property, or?
it. Well, it is, that was a
Was
part
part of
of
it,
it.
part
right.
Luckily, it's not a part right in the middle of it.
Right,
It's-
exactly.
It's on the edge, And, so there's still hope that they can,
Mhm.
you know, acquire the stuff that's
Mhm.
the rest of it. And
'Cause
you
that's the problem, is that somebody could,
Yeah, that's
Scout.
that's what I'm concerned about.
you know, a
Right. This
parcel in the
process
middle
takes so
or here,
long.
and then, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
reduce its value to
Yeah.
the town significantly.
Yeah, okay.
I think you've seen that Eastward Homes has put up a sign for sale.
I saw that at the
That-
beginning of that Freitas property
That's
there.
at the beginning of the
Did
Freitas
he
Club.
buy that from Freitas?
Yeah.
Oh, he
Where,
did?
where are you talking about?
Right past Little Shaver, if you're heading from here back to the center, or into East Harwich, right past Little Shaver, there's, what's that road there?
Little Lane.
Little Lane. So
Before
right
Little
before
Lane.
Little Lane, there's a sign now that said Eastwood Companies. And Freitas had purchased property in there, but it didn't have frontage.
Well, yeah, he had done.
Remember, we'd walked
deed
it as a
research,
committee.
the owner's unknown work on the back parcel of it.
Right,
And acquired that.
right. 5
It
acres
didn't
or
have
6
frontage.
acres, something.
So he then negotiated with, I wanna say it was Giuletti, who owned the little cottage that
Yeah.
was on the dirt road, which used to be
Oh,
Middle
okay,
Road.
so he did.
And I don't know what deal he had, but eventually he acquired rights to all of it.
Oh, okay, I
And
didn't realize that.
so, he then turned around and
Sold
he
it.
offered that to us,
Yeah,
He did.
multi-millions.
Yeah, he wanted us to purchase
Yeah, but he
it, the
was-
town.
But he had a subdivision plan, not necessarily, you know, registered and accepted, but planned for a road in through there, and I think six or seven lots.
Yeah,
yeah.
And he wanted us to pay the per lot price was if it had all the utilities, and he said, think again.
but it,
Just for information, that piece of property has already gone in front of the Conservation Commission for a determination, because alongside of the road to reach the lots that he intends to develop, there is a wetland area.
Yeah.
So it came in front of the Conservation Commission for a determination, or, you know, sort of a marking out of where the wetland area was, in order for him to lay out the roadway that would go back to those lots. So they're already that far in the process.
Yeah.
And as driving here, I noticed the sign that you had mentioned.
yeah, no, and part of the initial property butted up to the owner's unknown, and also the water department, and
Water
at that far
department.
end, yeah.
The backside is the water department. and-
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing, I mean, it's, that parcel is, not this one, but the Little Shaver Lane
Right,
is directly upgrading of the wells.
yeah,
If it gets chipped away at like that, its value to the town becomes less and less.
right, well, right
And-
now, it's got 2 sides now that are like starting
Coming
to,
in from both
Yeah,
sides.
yeah, yeah,
because we've been dragging our feet for 10 years.
yeah.
I mean, that's what's happening. I mean, and even when Freitas owned it, when they first came to us, he didn't have the access.
He did.
You know, that was one of the big problems there.
Yeah,
So, but now it's,
Yeah.
But they're different. Bob did it from the north side, and the other one, I forget what his name was.
Jamie
Came in from the
Bassett,
south. What's that?
Jamie Bassett, that,
No, Jamie Bassett, he's got property
off a Depot,
off
a
Depot.
yeah. But I mean, there's,
But kind of
there's an
weaves-
old cart path that goes all the way through.
Yes,
That's Middle Road.
Yeah,
That is Middle Road,
Yeah.
and that's the one that comes, and as far as I know, if you follow that all the way back, it brings you to, the end of Little Road. But if you follow that across the lot that it goes, it comes out by the sign at, where Eastward's, now just put
Yeah.
up this week.
yeah.
But Jamie Diamonds is on the Depot Road side of that middle road. And I mean, Jim Donovan knew him and asked him if he'd be willing to sell it to the town, and he said absolutely not, you know. He's gonna hang on to it, but he's got a whole bunch of back taxes due on it, so at some point.
Yeah, well, it's on this list, it's
Yeah.
on this
And
tax
so,
lien list.
so I think that,
I'm gonna
And I
keep-
think that's the best
I'm
property.
gonna keep this land and not pay my taxes. Oh, okay.
okay.
So I think that's a parcel that would be of great value to the town, because it's all town-owned around it.
Yeah.
On
Well,
both sides of it.
why don't we put that down as one of our,
And I think we've discussed that many years ago.
yeah, we did.
And it makes a nice wildlife corridor from
Yeah,
Thompson's Field to up to the
Yeah.
town forest. So I would.
crossing over J1, J2, J3.
Well, let's not get on.
Let's not get into that
Don't
one.
go there. So, do we want to put this property on Middle Road as,
It should have been already on our list.
Should have been on it, that's
Yeah,
if we're gonna work on Little Shaver, we should probably include that, because it's all
I think
contiguous.
that's a good point.
all right, so.
And I think we're concerned about this infringement,
Well,
that's
it-
happening,
It was on our, it is
Yeah.
on our list.
yeah.
So do we say, we're.
I'd move it up,
Move it up to a priority?
move it up. We gotta give him something here.
Well, okay, no, that makes sense.
I still think we need clarification of what he wanted us to do. Because it's just, I'm still not clear on what he was asking us, what Mike McCaskill was asking us to do. Because he made it sound like, okay, well, you know, we've run out of things to do, now you need to, it's clear that they have not run out of things to do, that they're only beginning to chip away at the list that we already gave them. So
Well, and to Jim's point last month, he said that there wasn't a lot of overlap on the lists, so,
yeah,
right? So it's clear that our original work, which was a 10 to 20, numbered list, is still very viable.
Right.
And I think, to Margot's point, we really do need to know the disposition of all those parcels. If they're in process, if they haven't looked at them, if they decided they weren't worth looking at them, if somebody somewhere made that decision, and then they need another grouping.
yeah, I mean, I wonder if we could take this list, which, yeah, so there were 30 parcels on this list, okay?
Right.
I have reserved 30 parcels.
I wonder if we could just ask them to, send them a formal request to say, can you tell us what the status is of follow-up work on these parcels?
And is that, so does that go to the
That's what I was
assessor's
just gonna
office,
say.
or the tax collector's office, or the board of selectmen's office, or the town administrator? Like, who,
Who do you ask?
Well, that comes back to the question that I raised
Right.
at the last meeting about the fact that I think it would be helpful for everybody involved to get us, the assessor's office, the administration, and the board of selectmen into a meeting to discuss who's doing what with all these parcels, and where are we going, and who's responsible for what, so that
Well-
we all know what our roles are.
I did have that phone conversation with Mr. McCaskill, brought up that point. He does not want this whole committee, in other words, he doesn't want to do like joint meetings or a subcommittee and where you have to post things, he doesn't want to do that. But he said if, like, his suggestion was if Dave meets with the assessor and you're getting your list from the tax. So, in other words, Dave is going to be our representative to find out what's going on and then report back to us, report back to the committee. He doesn't want to see, I'm sorry, Dave. I'm really sorry.
accept this job.
Yeah.
She had already
It's-
warned me of
It's
that.
like,
And I.
what's the other,
you know,
how do I get out of this chicken outfit? Yeah, okay, yeah.
Since my family situation is now different,
Yeah.
I am more than willing to do it, because
Okay.
this is the type of stuff I enjoy doing.
Okay.
Oh, God, love you.
It's not a-
So Dave, do you think, is it too much to ask them to give us a status report on each of these parcels?
That's what I'm working on.
Yeah.
In other words, from my perspective, the way I want to do it was be able to map it,
Yeah,
okay?
Okay.
And that's why I mentioned it, to see whether Amy had gotten my email, that only went out a couple days ago. I only met with Carly on Monday. I have to wait to find out what they have accomplished in there,
Yeah,
because it could change it. I mean, the possibility exists. We know, and I miss these meetings where somebody came forward with a whole bunch of property that was over to the west of the transfer station,
Right.
right?
right,
We know about that. It was brought up
Right.
in these meetings here. Now,
right, right.
does that information then flow down to the assessor's office somehow? And they have already mapped and, mapped this stuff out and are starting to tax it, I hope. Okay?
Yeah.
That would be a good thing. Under which circumstances, that parcel west of the transfer station has become a lot smaller.
Mhm.
How much? I don't know, until I see what the map is, that they draw. And that may change some of our priorities.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
what you told us sort of partially explains what one of the landowners, and I've forgotten his name, it wasn't Mr. Hall, it was the other guy. who-
Mr. Colson,
No, it wasn't Colson, it was the third guy.
Sexton.
Sexton, who said, they presented us a plan that showed what he owned. And we're like, well, that's interesting, because it shows up on the assessor's map, it says owner is unknown, and he said, well, it used to be taxed,
And then
Yes, and then it
but then it
wasn't.
isn't anymore. And it's like,
they stopped taxing me.
Well, this may be one of the things, that they're
Yeah.
trying to work on there. But if they, again, that would indicate it. If they still haven't, then let's take whatever records, public records we have, I assume, or was that an executive session? There's another question. I don't know.
yeah,
Yes, yes,
Right.
it was an executive
So-
yeah,
session.
it was.
So, is it public records by this point? I don't know.
That's a good question, actually,
So-
because it hasn't been resolved. So,
So, anyway, that's
I know that some areas that we have talked about, I was told that a couple people have showed up claiming ownership of
Mhm.
some of those parcels.
mhm.
I can't say exactly which, but yes, so some of them have stepped up to speak once
Mhm.
they found out that maybe something else was gonna happen.
Yeah,
Elaine, one of the sort of overall questions that I have is, we had presented the list of our priorities.
Mhm.
Has the town officially taken a look at that to see whether or not those are the town's priorities for acquisition?
Yeah, we presented to the Board of Selectmen,
Yeah.
and from the chair of the board said to me that, yes, the Little Shaver area, the property by the transfer station, property on Hall's Path, and property up around the sand pit are all their priorities right now.
Okay, so those are the priorities
Those are the
of
ones
the
that they
town
are
to
really
proceed
interested in.
towards acquisition, and the research that's going on down in the assessor's office hopefully will speed up that process.
Right.
well, that's,
Okay.
see, that's the piece I'm not confident about, that somehow the priorities that we identified and then communicated to the selectmen, and then the selectmen charged the assessor's office with working on, it's not clear that we're even working with the same lists here,
Well, that's something Dave
Carly
can
said that
straighten out.
she did have the list. She
Okay.
received it, and that's where they were going. Now, again, this was just an introductory meeting,
Right,
get to know each other and figure out,
Right.
what some of the issues are. We are in complete agreement,
yeah,
and we're gonna be having more meetings just to get down into the nitty-gritty, and I just can't fill you in on
I mean,
exactly what the.
you could be a huge resource to them. Your maps are better than anything that they have.
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible to say that, but I mean, just your sort of personal due diligence in looking into this is better than the town records.
Well, it's not so much, no, because it is the town record. Basically, my map is based upon what the town records are. If the town records are awful,
Yeah,
my maps are awful. And I've known that from the beginning. all right? And, you know, we presented to the selectmen, that was one of the things I said, you know? I'm reliant, there's stuff on here that says its owner's unknown, and I suspect the town does know, their records just don't work, are not accurate. So, and I think that's been part of the push for, you know, Mike has been pushing the assessor's office to clean up, and they're doing that, and pushing over on the
And he's
tax.
also said that they are going to hire another person in the assessor's office. You know, I'm not sure if it's part-time or full-time, but they recognize the fact that they need more help in that office in order to try and get some of these things resolved. And that's been the problem, is staff shortage. So, you know, hopefully,
You know, the fact that I'm doing this work is simply because the town has refused to hire town engineers, surveyors,
Yeah,
and, you know, GIS specialists and so
Yeah.
forth, which most other towns have.
yep,
You know, it's
maybe
where
they
they
should
set their
contract
priorities.
with
At
you
some
as an
point,
independent-
I
You wanna
would
be an
love it. I
independent
would absolutely
consultant?
love it if we had a GIS specialist here who was responsible in making these maps and get them involved with what other towns do, which includes for the water department, for the police and fire, and
Yeah.
all the rest of those things are
Everybody
all
needs
mapped out electronically. So anything happens in town, you know, you got somebody who can generate a map on that. It just doesn't exist here. So, it is what it is. And I'm just trying to cover up what I think is a glaring hole so that we can make informed decisions without relying on people just giving us spreadsheets
yeah,
and flipping through paper that is out of date,
yeah,
so.
yeah.
well, I think what Marco said, if they can give you some kind of update on the things that are on that list, are they looking at any of them? If so, what are they doing about it? That would be helpful, just
Yeah.
like you're asking.
Yeah, and there's a corollary to that too, because you've noted that they're also getting requests from other entities like the Board of Tax Assessors, to look into, we don't know what. But it would be good to know, my highest priority is to get a status report on this. But it would also be good to know, well, what else do they see as being a priority? Because, you know, it's all part of this issue of the right hand knowing what the left hand is doing.
Well, this is what, hopefully, this coordination will work.
Oh, yeah, my coordinate is primarily with the assessor's office.
Yeah.
I mean,
But
I
you're
agree
also
with Jim,
talking
though,
with
in the
the
sense if you
tax.
got it, you know, at some point, I'm gonna have to, you know, squeeze in, I mean, Amy's here for a few more months.
Yeah,
See if I can get a way for them to provide periodic reports like we would need.
right.
And then get some time to somehow, when somebody's meeting with the lawyers to discuss these properties that they want researched, see if I can somehow get invited to those meetings to participate in,
Yeah.
because of, you know, of I won't call it expertise, but it's probably the biggest knowledge in, you know, town
Yeah.
of the specifics about
Yeah.
particular parcels. And I'm more than happy to share all the research that I've done, and I've
Yeah,
told
that's
that
huge.
I have not yet been contacted by any lawyer saying, by the way, I understand you've done some work. you
Yeah.
know? And I think it's because they want to do their own work, because they don't trust other people. So,
Yeah.
plus they get the rack up billing. But,
There is
and-
that.
and-
Do lawyers do that, Dave?
and, you know, I'm in the attitude, if somebody gives you a source of stuff, that's good, then now you can do more diligent
Yeah.
and be, you know, go dig deeper, but,
Well, Jim has you've pointed this out to me once before, that if you have someone who does have a lot of experience doing title research, and not necessarily an attorney, they can do that research, and then an attorney who,
evaluate,
you know, who thinks this person is qualified to do this and accepts their work, they can approve it, which
Yeah.
saves all those attorney hours
Yeah.
of looking things up.
Exactly.
So I don't know why we just don't, not we, but the town doesn't just contract with someone who
Well,
we know of,
basically,
they used
title
to,
examiners do that.
yeah.
And And the title examiners traditionally are not attorneys.
Right.
They quite often work for attorneys, and the attorneys will take their work, review it, and then verify
Right.
title. What I was gonna mention to David, you're working with the assessor's office, if there would be any value for me to take a look at some of the stuff that they're looking at, especially if it's old deeds or something like that, I'd be happy to do that.
Okay.
I'll be glad to call you in and, give you all
Yeah.
the stuff that I discover.
Careful
if
what you
wanna
ask for.
look at it. I mean,
Really?
there's one case I did for HCT that took me about 8 hours of research and finally found out that somebody sold a piece of property twice.
Yeah, because especially some of the old deeds, I mean, I actually did an exercise when I was with Mass Water Resources Authority to trace all of the deeds for the aqueducts from the Quabbin Reservoir into the city of Boston. And some of those deeds went back into the early 1800s. And we spent an entire year, I mean, not full-time an entire year, but spent an entire year sort of tracing down and trying to determine the boundaries of the Mass Water Resources Authority ownership in those aqueducts coming into the city of Boston.
Wow,
Wow.
wow, okay.
Well, I'll involve you.
Sometimes it can be fascinating, because if you go through a whole series of the deeds, in some of them, due to various family situations back in the 1800s, it's like looking at a soap opera on TV.
Well, as long as you enjoy doing it. Got it.
Research,
All right,
so.
Carol?
before we move on, can I just, so the action items from all our discussion is, Amy's gonna add columns identifying properties already foreclosed on or payment plan settled on, right?
Basically,
That's one
that
action
to
item.
identify the status of foreclosures and payment plans
Right,
on any of those that are in those categories.
status up, right. And Elaine, you're gonna contact Joe Howard for more information on when will land of low value be auctioned off,
Right.
right?
Yep.
That's still, that doesn't,
I
all
got
right.
that on my list.
And Mike McCaskill suggested that a rep or Dave meet with the assessor's office, right,
I've started.
for a report on this property list, right, and the status of,
Status of our recommendations.
Yeah,
The status of our recommendations,
right.
right?
Yeah.
basically, the research that they're doing to clean up the records and
On this
how that
list.
might impact
Right.
that state, those recommendations.
But that's not the same thing that we're asking of Amy.
No.
No.
No, it's not.
No.
Because the assessor deals with some things that Amy doesn't even
Right.
have on her list.
She-
Okay.
Right.
All right, thank you.
Okay, you're
Yep.
good? All right. Chair's report. I really don't have anything. I did not attend the last Affordable Housing Trust meeting. I watched it, but nothing to say. Members' report, Dave, I think you covered everything you have to say. Kathy, anything from you?
CPC, we
CPC?
did not meet this month, mostly due to the fact that the majority of our committee had not been reappointed yet. But I will say that due to the promptness of our committee, with whatever, I was reappointed, so.
Yes.
So all we have is a chair and a vice chair right now.
Okay.
Well,
So we did not meet. so.
okay, all right. Jim, anything?
Well, just to follow up on the comment I made at the last meeting with regard to the property that is being considered.
Oh, yes, I was gonna ask
to
you about that.
negotiate with the Cape Cod Tech for their use. There has been a sort of discovered prohibition in the transfer of title to the town of that property, and it comes in the authorization of the funding from the state that the town used in order to acquire that property. The prohibition appears to be legislative, therefore there is discussion as to whether or not anybody who's willing to go back to the legislature to get, further authorization. Those discussions are all
Wait,
ongoing.
authorization to do what?
to lease our property to the Cape Cod Tech.
Okay. Wow.
Wow,
Yeah,
interesting.
there were restrictions on the use of the property in the legislation that authorized the funding
Okay.
that was used in order to acquire the property.
Wow.
Wow.
And so that, if you narrowly read those restrictions, and I don't have them with me today, but it may inhibit Cape Cod Tech from doing the type of program that they're interested in doing on the property.
That would be too bad.
So the solution to that would be to go back to the legislature and get authorization, in lieu of that legislation. My understanding and my working with certain similar situations in past years indicates that if there is no opposition to, to whatever is being proposed, sometimes those little bills can go through the legislature quite quickly.
That's what was gonna be my question.
Unfortunately, the timing is that the legislature is closing down this session and won't go back into session till the fall, which makes it impossible for Cape Cod Tech to be able to enter into any type of agreement with the town, and have any programs going, at least in the fall semester.
Just when you think something looks easy. it isn't.
Nothing is easy. It's
Nothing
all
is
the
easy.
lawyer's fault.
Oh, I'm sure, I'm sure.
I'm glad a lawyer agrees with us.
Margot, anything
I
you'd
have
like to add
nothing
to
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 report,
me?
no.
You're okay with questions and resolutions? Carol, anything you'd like to?
No, thanks.
No, you're good? Okay. And please, help with the agenda for the next meeting. I mean, I know this looked light, but you could see we did have a
There was plenty
discussion.
to talk about.
There is a lot, but,
Maybe, maybe by next month, Dave will have
I would
some,
expect by next
some
month.
Yeah,
information.
We'll have
you know what?
going.
I'll check with you before I have to post
Right,
the
right,
next
right.
one to see if there's enough information to require a meeting in August. If not, we can just all go to the beach.
I can tell you that I met yesterday 2 days ago, with a volunteer at HCT, who just joined us, who is an expert in mapping and using GIS systems. And so I presented him with the work that I've done, and we've been discussing what it is I want to do. And, as our discussion went on, he said, well, we go this way, and then all of a sudden, oh, maybe we're gonna go this way. And so this is the type of guy that I want, who understands what the process is.
Great.
And as soon as I get the data, he's the first person I'm meeting with, because he wants to see the type of manipulation that I do to the data before it gets over to the map. Give me ideas of how to streamline that process, because I was reading instructions, it's like 10 pages I wrote for doing this.
Great.
So, I think
That's great.
I've got some help, somebody watching over my shoulder that will do it. I gave him a copy of the Google Earth KMZ, and he simply wrote back and said, wow, impressive. So
Wow.
he
yeah.
sees what it is we're trying, that I want to accomplish, because that is my ultimate goal, is to be able to provide to
Yeah.
the planning office and so forth.
Great.
All right, one thing,
Elaine,
yeah,
just
sure.
one other point of information, and Dave's mention of HTC reminded me of it, is, as you probably all saw in the paper, HTC and the Fire Association or
Right.
whatever
Mhm.
has been awarded the right to buy the property of the old firehouse adjacent to the project that is being proposed by HTC and the town
Right,
to restore that whole big piece of property just off of Bank Street. That property has to, and the plans for that property have to be approved by the Conservation Commission, and that is now being proposed to go for a second hearing at the Conservation Commission meeting next Wednesday.
oh, okay.
So if anybody's interested, they're all welcome to attend that Conservation
Yeah,
Commission
cool.
meeting.
Cool, yeah.
Next one's just gonna be the what? Because
The
I saw it, I
20th?
thought I
It's the
saw that they were,
20th. It's the 20th.
The yeah, I think
yeah,
it's.
22nd, I think it was, wasn't it?
No, I think it's the 20th.
It's the 20th.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think I saw it.
I just
But
remember-
anyway, has already been one hearing in front of the Conservation Commission on that property, and a number of suggestions were made. If any of you read the article in the Cape Cod Chronicle, some of it had to do with the way the boardwalk was being developed for the accessible pathway. And, HTC was very open to those suggestions.
Good, yeah.
And is coming back for what I think they hope will be the second and final hearing before approval by the Conservation Commission.
Great. One last thing. I know I sent out to everybody this open meeting law training. I don't know if they just sent it out to committee chairs, or if they sent it, I don't know. But Monday night, and the original thing that I sent you all, and I hope everybody's going to try to attend if possible.
I think you need to register, right?
Yes. There's 2 sessions, one from 3
Yeah.
to 5 and the other from 6 to 8. And originally, the thing that was emailed to me said, take place at Harwich Town Hall in the Griffin Room, 732 Main Street. Monday night at the Selectmen's meeting, when Mr. Powers mentioned this right off the top, I thought I heard him say, and then I went back and watched the video, it will now take place at the Harwich Community Center.
Oh,
Well, I never got an email saying, I had to print this off the agenda packet from the Board of Selectmen. So I don't know if everybody was
Yeah, they probably didn't,
told.
I'm guessing they needed a bigger room.
they'll probably
Well,
tell
I'm
people-
sure they did, but
Maybe
you
if
know.
you register, it tells you. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean.
Well, no, you just email and say, I'd like to attend the whatever session. That's all I did.
Right, but what I'm saying is maybe they'll send an email blast to all the attendees
Well, I
that are
would hope
registered
so.
saying that it's at the
I would
Harvard
hope so.
Community
But-
Center.
But just in case, we all know the
Okay,
right
thank
place
you.
to go.
Thank you.
For that meeting, which I think I know Jim and Kathy, you're probably all very familiar with all the open meeting, and,
Yeah, but it's a good review if you have the time.
right. And, I mean, you can even go online and, read all the but you know what? Besides the educational part of it, it's also the community part of it, as being with other chairs and other committee members.
Shows the flag.
and- Yeah, that we can all be together in the same room. I had also asked quite a while ago, Mr. Powers, and then recently mentioned it, Mr. McCaskill, I thought it would be advantageous for committee chairs, just the chair, to have a list of the other committee chairs, just with their email address. I mean, when I wanted to send a message to the Conservation Commission, I had to call and get the chair's email from somebody. I mean, I had no way to get in touch
Yeah.
other than doing that. But, and no phone numbers, but just.
That's a great idea.
Because in the past, if someone called the administrator's office and asked to contact someone, like our committee, I don't know if they did it to you, but they gave my name and phone number. Well, I don't necessarily want phone calls, give them my email, and then I'll respond to them. So, just the chair
Yeah.
and their email that the other chairs should have, just in case, like I wanted to
Good
send
idea.
a thank you
Yeah,
for
great
supporting
idea.
our
Yeah.
article, thank you for this, or we would, whatever. I don't understand why, but then I don't understand a lot of things. Okay,
Elaine,
yes.
on that open meeting law meeting, there seemed to be a completely different approach from the town to the Conservation Commission on that.
Oh.
Because we got a link to click on, in our agenda package. The link, I clicked on it, it was just a notice. It did say the community center.
Oh, okay.
But then it gave not an email address, but a telephone number to call. It was the general number of the
The
town.
office, yeah.
There was no indication on the town answering service as to where you should actually, make the
Well, I think,
comment.
yeah, the
So I-
administrator's office.
So I clicked on administration.
Yeah.
And one of the people in the administration office took my name and
Right,
what committees I was on and which session that I wanted to go to.
Yeah, okay. Oh, I never got a message like that to forward to anybody
So
on this
If
committee.
anybody knows which one they're going to, maybe the easiest way to sign up would be as you walk out to go to the administration.
Yeah,
meeting,
and say,
And just say, look, I want to go to the meeting on,
yeah,
whether
I'm,
it's the
yeah,
afternoon or the evening meeting,
Yes.
you know, and just sign up that way.
okay.
Motion to adjourn?
Well, first, just our next meeting date, if we decide to have it, find it necessary, would be August 19th.
Okay.
Summer's over. So, motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we are done.
Excellent meeting, thank you.
Thank you.
Here.